Hi, folks. I'm Nikhil Sachdeva, a former intern at Mondelez International. I have been developing Quickbase apps for over 6 months now and have been impressed by the amazing capabilities that a no-code, low-code platform like Quickbase can achieve. So, to give you a little background of Mondelez and how I came up with this idea, uh, I'll be showcasing tracking app usage metrics using admin console connections. So admin console connections is a feature within the Quickbase platform which Realm managers or Quickbase admins can access, through which you can track the metrics of app usages, like how they are growing over time, how people are using the apps, and other metrics that Quickbase provides. So to give you a little background how I ended up with this idea, Mondelez was going through a phase where it depended a lot on Quickbase for its no-code, low-code initiative, and it had like a lot of use cases which were of high importance and wanted to get metrics out of usages, how people are adopting to the new system, and so just to have more tracking of the apps. So they ended up contacting the data insights team at Mondelez, and they were helpful in helping us figure out what could be the solution. And they suggested this particular solution. But as I got more involved, I realized that this what they are suggesting is just one step, and a lot of things can be built over it. So the idea that I present is something, the connections can be made by anyone, but the app that you build over it is something that I ended up discovering on my own. And the possibilities are endless with those apps. And what you can track, if you have a lot of apps in your Quickbase realm, it just gets better if you have more tracking and you realize in your organization what kind of adoption is being taken with regard to Quickbase. So I'll just move ahead. I'll like there are a lot of applications where this could be used. A few are listed here, like you can track activities on Quickbase apps. For example, at one point in Mondelez, we wanted to track what is the weekly usage of a particular app and how many people are using it over a week. So, and when do we see the rise of people just accessing, and at what time do they use it? So, just to have a rough idea of how user interact with, and if they're really using the app, you just get better information when you have like metrics over or like charts related to these. So you can track those. You can track app metrics related to each app, like how they're growing over time, the sizes, the API requests that they are making. You can have an app using these connections, which could be an admin tracking dashboard. So these could really act out as dashboards for the app managers or anybody who has an app level view of the whole Quickbase understanding. So the last would be to have cumulative reports. So these data that they provide get refreshed over time whenever you want it to be, monthly, weekly, daily. But using some automations or pipelines, you can just have cumulative data over time and build reports over whatever time frame or whatever constraint you want it to be. So to get into the technical details next, the admin console connections provides three kinds of data. The different abstractions of whatever the usage of Quickbase you have under your builder program. So there are user logs, app logs, and access logs. So I'll just be going over how these are created. So if I switch over to a sample app that I created for this particular use case, you can just go to a new table. You can either create it from scratch, or you usually do. But if you want to use admin console connections, how I created these three tables, you just go to using connected data, and you just name it, suppose user logs. You want user log, and then if you go to next, you realize that since I've created all three tables, there won't be an option here, but similar to Quickbase, there will be Quickbase admin console here. You can create only three tables out of this. Hence, Um, hence, I don't have the option yet, but you'll see an option to create these tables. You just need to tell what kind of fields do you want. Just switch all the fields to the right. You'll have access to all of them. And then there will be a prompt to ask whether you want it to be refreshed daily, weekly, or monthly. Just select daily so that you can have uh, just updated data whenever you want it. And if you go over to app logs, I'll show you, I'll give you a rough idea of how these metrics look like. App logs is just the list of apps that there are, their IDs, and what kind of API requests they do, what kind of attachment size or application size do they have. So if you can see, there are the metrics, and these are the applications that are in my run. This is my personal builder program account. So these are the reports, these are the applications that I have under my builder program. So these are the metrics that I can track from it. As you can see, there are a lot of metrics that you can work around with. And if you want just a basic report, you can create it out of here as well. As you can see, this is a connected database. You have a refresh data button here, with which you can just refresh data on command. Otherwise, since I have the setting of being refreshed daily, so it gets automatically refreshed as well. Similar kind of metrics exist for other two tables as well. So moving forward, I'll just give a brief overview of what these logs mean. So user logs are just details of user in your QB realm. They're identified by user IDs. So the unique identifier or the key in those tables being user IDs. And then there are app logs. Here the unique identifier is the app ID. And as we saw, it has details like app size or API count. Then there are access logs, which has summary of apps accessed by users in the realm. I believe this is a culmination of both user IDs and app IDs, where the unique access of a particular app by a user is being recorded on a daily basis. So I treat this as a very high application-based outcome that Quickbase provides. You can just have unlimited reports out of this particular table, daily accesses, and just a graph of how users interact with Quickbase. And as we see moving forward, there are a lot of things you can just build over. Next, the thing is, when you create a access logs table, you'll only have user IDs and app IDs. You won't have the actual name of the users or the actual name of the application. So for this, you can create a basic table-table connection. I'll just show you an overview of that. If you go to access logs, you'll see that I have made those connections. I'll just give a brief understanding of how they went about. So when you create this, the key user ID, app ID, and last accessed is something that they already provide with. But the first name, application name, email is something that you can bring over using table-to-table connections. I'll just give you even in the settings, you have an admin console connection setting where you can edit what kind of configuration you want for it to be, like change the refresh time or something like that. But if you go to table-to-table connections, I have made these. So as you can see, one user can have multiple accesses and one app can be accessed multiple times. So it's a one-to-many connection in that direction. And the user ID and the app ID within the access logs and IDs in individually users and app logs are the one that needs to be connected. And and once you have those connections, you can just have data over from user logs to this table because of the one-to-many connection. So I have the email and first name over from the user logs. So this just makes the work easier and makes it more legible if you want data out of it. It just makes more sense if you have direct data access and not just random IDs. So moving forward, I hope your reflections are clear. These are pretty standard one-to-many connections. And then, as I talked before about cumulative data, when data is refreshed daily on these particular tables of admin console connections, they tend to get lost. such that the previous accesses of a particular access log won't exist the next day. It's just because the same person accesses the same app again the next day, the previous existing data will get lost, which is, I believe, redundant. That we don't have the previous data. It's just counterproductive to, if you want time for uh, like you want it over time and accumulate the data. So herein lies the amazing capabilities of Quickbase to just uh, uh, to just reach the ends of what Quickbase can achieve. You have to really try hard. If you think you can't achieve, when I started first developing these, I thought cumulative data would be a task, but then I realized that the kind of tools that Quickbase provides with the data is just endless, and the outcomes, if you can think of it, it's pretty sure that you can make it as well. So I've used automations, but at the same time, I believe pipelines, which have much more capabilities than a basic automation, can also execute these. Whatever you're comfortable with, just use those. This In this particular automation, I'll just go over uh, how those automations were created. So go to settings here, and then go to automations. You'll see that you'll see what the trigger is, what the action is for these particular automations. Again, these are very basic. You just copy the data over to a sample table. What I did was create a sample backup table, which had entries the similar to access logs. So whatever the entries, the fields of the access logs are, I just created a backup table which had the same fields. And then on a daily basis, I copy these access logs. So the trigger here is that it runs daily. So on a daily basis, the data gets copied over to access logs. And the action here, as you can see, is copy records from access logs to the backup access logs. If you just go to add action, I just use copy records function of the actions. And as you can see, I just copied over all the fields from access logs to the backup access logs. It's as simple as that. And this small tweak will just make this app have a lot of applications in terms of how you want to manipulate the data. You basically have more access to the data in this particular this particular application. But again, what I would suggest to anybody who's developing a similar app is to not limit yourself. The possibilities are endless with these kinds of data, and whatever are your end goals, make sure that you have some sort of arrangement, a new table, an automation, a pipeline that just extracts the data. The data is the limit that they provide as of now, but apart from that, developing on it is easier if you have some basic understanding of how Quickbase development goes. Moving forward within the app, if you have made backup automations, the technical part or the boring part is over. The interesting part now begins where you have when you have to create reports. I believe creating reports on Quickbase platform is one of the most exciting experiences for a developer. It's just clicking what will be done on the x-axis, what will be on the y-axis, and you have a dynamic report as the outcome. As a developer, if you have some computer science background, you'll understand that this experience is amazing that they have created over the platform. And for companies like Mondelez, at the scale that they work with, dynamic reports really function the best for the team, and just helps like large scale teams and people working all over the world to have a common understanding of how data will work, and just removes the headache of creating tables on a weekly, monthly basis out of an Excel sheet. This just makes the work easier. So I highly recommend creating reports, whatever comes to your mind with this data. I'll just be giving examples of what Mondelez is going through, the process that they went through, and the charts that I developed. And we might even go into the details of one or two. So the list of reports that I created would be the app size bar graph, how the app sizes change over time, access logs report, what kind of accesses are being done by the users, Then weekly usage of particular app, you have weekly usages of the last week, and then you can filter what kind of apps you want the report for. For example, in a particular use case in Quickbase, there was a high priority application which required the weekly usage metric to be extracted, and we just put a filter and extracted that report, and it was very useful for the team in the end. So then there are API read requests, how those are created over time and how APIs are being called through apps. And apps to be archived is also something Mondelez was working through. They had a lot of apps within Quickbase and they wanted to know which ones are not being accessed. This again is like using data to its best. So if you have access dates, you can just switch and know what kind of apps were not being accessed in the last days. So I believe the two important reports here would be weekly usages and apps to be archived. So I'll just go over those and how they were created. Um, so if you look at, these are the app size bar graphs, these are the apps to be archived report. Since I don't have any read requests in the apps that I have, these are empty, but there were apps within Mondelez realm that were accessing APIs. And then there are access log reports of how apps are being accessed. And then there's weekly usage. So let's go to weekly usage first. And then we'll go over to apps to be archived. And I think a basic understanding of both would give you comfortability in developing and how to go about it. So if you go to customize this report, I just show the setting what I did. So this is a basic bar chart, just like the bar chart from here. The x-axis is the application name. The y-axis is the number of accesses that you have. This is the backup. This is the backup table. Since you want it to be cumulative and weekly usage can't be like refreshed over time, you want it to be cumulative. Please create this out of a backup table that has accesses, that has data being cumulated over already. So yeah, there's a particular filter which just says that the date modified, the field that is automatically there, is after 7 days in the past. So only entries which are after 7 days in the past will be entered, and you will have weekly accesses. And if you have multiple, for example, if you look at dynamic filters, if you have like multiple applications, you can just switch the application name filter according to it and get to know what kind of accesses there are. Then I think apps to be archived is something that we should go through. I think this is also out of, just go from here. Personally, apps to be archived is for me is the most interesting outcome of this particular data that we have. So I think the settings of it will explain it more. Customize this report. So these are apps that were not accessed for a long time. So it's just a basic like a table report. So table reports are just extractions of the original table. You have what kind of filters do you want, application name, and everything that you want. And here comes the interesting part. The filter is the last modified is before 15 days in the past. So what this means is that these apps were not accessed for the last 15 days. So the apps that were not being used, you can make it a month, you can make it 2 months. The apps that were not being accessed over time are the ones that you should archive or probably delete because they are not active. You probably created it out of necessity while testing some things out. So it just makes sense to know what kind of apps are no longer in use. So you can just have more tracking of the Quickbase platform. So again, the data, once you have an understanding of the data, the kind of the admin console connections, after that, you can create whatever you want. So, yep, I think you have an understanding of how these reports were created. I believe admin console connections to track metric usages is very easy on whatever end of development you are. Again, I would recommend that only the connections of the tables are to be made by the realm managers or the builder program managers of the Quickbase platform. But the development on it can be done by anyone who has administrator access to the app. So development is not restricted. Only the admin console connections are restricted. Obviously, because the data is something that not everybody should have access to. Only the realm manager should. So if you have a trial account or a free builder program account, you can test these features out. And the sample app that I just showcased was also built on similar builder program that I have on my personal account. So yeah, that would be it from my end. I think. Thank you for listening to me, and I hope this helps in your Quickbase journey. Thank you.